welcome back to another episode of Tech Pro Unicorn Podcast. Today, we are going into the educational side of technology. A lot of you ask questions around what colleges should I go to, what's a good computer science program, and you're all doing that with the intent of trying to get a great job in tech, trying to be a developer, and trying to make a six-figure income. So today, we're going to talk to Emily Hill, who's got a really interesting angle on that and has a master's class on how to become a six-figure software developer without the 4 years of college. And many of you know my son went through Harvey Mudd. He spent 4 years there. We were blessed with, almost $200,000 in Parent Plus loans and student debt. So I'm personally very interested in Emily's message. Since 2010, Dr. Emily's been on a mission to help problem solvers become six-figure developers to create software and apps that can transform the world. After spending over a decade teaching academia as a professor, Emily now teaches students faster, better, and cheaper inside the Joy of Coding Academy. Emily enjoys balancing work and family life with her husband and 4 children, and 5 on the way. So congratulations, and thank you, Emily, for taking the time to join us on the podcast.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
So cool. So as a professor teaching right in the traditional education world, for you to kind of go, ooh, there's a different way, just kind of breaking the mold a little bit. Talk to me a little bit about how did you get to that decision? How were you like, we don't really need to teach 4 years. We can really teach it in 6 months, and this is what's really important.
Yeah, for sure. Well, partly, if it's okay, I start with just a little bit about my background.
Absolutely,
of how I got
please.
there. Because I was the poster child for academia. Didn't work for me. So I have all the things that society says should make a good coder. My mom has a master's in math. My dad has his PhD in statistics. They met at Bell Labs, which is really well-known technical space. And I really struggled to learn how to code. I started trying to learn in high school, and I was like, okay, that didn't work. And then I was like, okay, let me go to college for computer science. This will be the way. This is what everybody says I need to do to learn how to code. Yeah, no. And it wasn't like I didn't try or succeed. I had a 4.0, which in the US is the highest GPA you can get, the highest grade you can get. My final 2 years of college when I was taking the hardest computer science classes. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. And I knew I didn't know what I was doing so much that I was like, I can't apply for jobs. What computer scientist doesn't know how to code? So I thought more school must be the answer. Okay, more. Okay. Newsflash, it wasn't. But I went to get my master's and eventually my PhD. And all that happened was I did not get any more support in learning how to code. It's just the problems became so difficult. It was either I figure it out or I flunk out. And failure wasn't an option. I eventually figured out. So even though I have 3 computer science degrees, I am still self-taught. Which to me, I was like, the system is broken. This is not working. So then I kind of had a chip on my shoulder. I made it my mission. I was like, anyone should be able to do this. Like I have everything on that laundry list of things that say make a good coder. I'm musical, I'm mathematical, it was still such a struggle. And so I was like, no, there's going to be an easier way. So I went into academia to change the system until eventually I realized there's some flaws in the system that make it almost impossible to do so. And that's why I started moving outside, if that makes sense.
I love it. So many folks, I think, get faced with that pressure to follow the path, right? Like your kids went to, like all my kids, like they have to go to college. They don't have a choice.
Right.
It's like, I don't really care what they take, but they're going to college. Right. And when they asked to follow a different path, and many of them did, they said, oh, can't we do this or can't we do this? We were part of a tech startup here in the Phoenix area called Galvanize, and they have a tech school that's not a college program, right? It's you start and you go through and you learn to be a developer or a data science. They have a couple different programs, but you don't get a degree, right? You just get the skills necessary to go get a job, right? And to be a productive member. And so I was looking at that and I was like, no, they can't do that. And part of that, I think, is we have all this institutional barriers, right? Like we don't hire people without college degrees at my consulting firm, right? Because we believe that somehow gives them some special privilege or special, I don't know what we think it gives them, but we only look at people with college degrees, right? And if they don't have a college degree, we don't. And I've often thought, like, man, I think we're missing some of the talent pool, right? I think we're doing ourselves a bit of a disservice. So it's really cool, your story, right? And then I could just see you in academia trying to change the world, right? And it's such a institutionalized thing, right? Like, they don't want to change. They want to walk around in smoking jackets and big pipes and be a professor and sit in a big fluffy chair and they aspire to that. It's crazy.
Well, I think there's really like two main challenges. One is, like you said, there is some stagnation in academia, in part because of the model, is that it favors a long-term view. There's tenure, right? You have job security. And whenever you have that, there's a disincentive to change because that's more work that you're not getting compensated and rewarded for. So some of this, that used to be really important, where you used to be killed for having the wrong idea, right? Like when universities were founded. But that's no longer, and it does prevent people, it helps people feel comfortable speaking up and having that honest dialogue because you're not afraid that you're going to get fired if you disagree with your supervisor, right? So there is some helpfulness there in terms of the free sharing of ideas. But in computer science and technology specifically, my area of expertise was teaching software engineering. So I was in charge of the whole computer science curriculum. I was the program director. So I was in charge of that pipeline, but my specialty was in software engineering and teaching anybody to code. And so while I'm teaching software engineering, the field is actively changing while I'm teaching it. That does not occur in history or chemistry or music or math, right? Like the changes in those fields happen rarely, and they happen at the advanced endpoints. Software engineering is so new and young, it's actually evolving while we're teaching it. How can an academic institution hope to keep up? Right, the finishing school right now for software engineering is really in the manga companies, right, in Facebook and Amazon and Google and Netflix, and they don't have time to share with the rest of the world what's working for them and their proprietary secrets. So academia is doing the best we can, but really what it comes down to is that computer science is not software development, and that is why there's this disalignment that, a great computer science program is going to teach you awesome programming skills, but as someone who's been on the inside and seen how institutions are assessed, how we are held accountable, there is a real discrepancy between what the student expects to get out of a computer science program and what the faculty are actually responsible for delivering. They're responsible for delivering the theory, not the practical side, which is what all the students go for. So when I tried to change that, what ended up happening is I ended up giving all of my students 2 degrees, one in computer science and one in software development. And it killed both of us. It wasn't fair because I was overworking us all to try and make this happen. So I did shoehorn it in. I figured out what worked, but it wasn't fair. And I had to pull back. And that's when I realized, there is a better way. What if we take out spring break, we take out exams, and you only have one perspective, like one person's vision, week after week, day after day, for just a couple hours a day, you can get through this stuff in 6 months. You don't need for 2.5 years, which is what my semester sequence was inside a 4-year degree. And it can be a fraction of the cost because you can really fast track it because you're getting one sustained vision of what it needs to look like. Like all of my faculty colleagues have different perspectives, and that's great. But if you're trying to move fast, switching perspectives, it's like switching instruments. Pick up flute and then 2 months later you're switching to clarinet, which is very similar to technology where you have to pick up multiple languages, right? And so you just kind of get distracted and you get overwhelmed. And so I realized that actually taking this out of academia was the smartest path to really help people accelerate their career trajectory.
I love it. When we hire interns, right? People just starting their careers coming out of college. We look for math, sciences, or computer science degrees, and the number of computer science degrees that we get, where we're like, okay, now apply all this theory to a real world situation, and they're just like, I'm not really a developer. you just got a computer science degree. Like, what the hell do you mean you're not a developer? Um, and they're like, well, yeah, or they'll show me like their college project. Oh, I built this really cool thing. I'm like, oh, can you build something else? Well, no, and it just kind of blows me away. I'm like, wait a minute, you just spent incredible amounts of time, right? Your time, you spent tons of money, and you're kind of ill equipped, right? When my son had the opportunity to go to Harvey Mudd, which is an amazing
Yes.
computer science school, but he learned from great professors and had a great education. But he really learned when he did his internships, right? When he was out in the real world doing real world stuff. He did an internship with Dignity Health and Healthcare. He did an internship with NASA, and he did an internship with Facebook. And that's where he was able to like really take his computer science education and go, aha, this is how I make this fly, right? Like that practical, real world solutions, all the theory and such. I think people just get book smart and they don't know how to turn that key into practical application.
Absolutely. Well, if you think about it, like think about reading a book on swimming versus swimming. Right? There's a difference. And in colleges and universities, the emphasis is on, we do learn problem solving, we learn the theoretical basics, but it's passing exams, right? At the end of the semester, the professor has to give a grade, which really is meaningless. It's a momentary, snapshot of where you are in your learning. It doesn't capture your potential. It kind of captures where you've been a little bit, like how much time you put in, but it's really not, the system isn't set up to really assess someone's ability to problem solve in practice. And this is my frustration with like technical interviews, which have now become a standard for getting tech jobs because it's like another exam. And we know like the SATs totally predict college success, right? Sorry, I'm a little.
I love it.
I don't know. So like, I'm just saying like, we know that exams don't capture everything. And so that real world experience, that's something that's been a hallmark of my program, whether it was in the university or inside the Joy of Coding Academy, is that students are working in teams on projects, because that's what differentiates like a casual coder who might have come from a degree program or a boot camp or just learned on their own from that 6-figure developer level, is the ability to work on a team. And they know that code is not just something functional that gets executed, but it's a means of communicating with other people on their team, whether they're there right now or in the future, because you're handing your code off to somebody else who's going to be stuck with it and needs to edit it.
I love, it's funny. So Kyle, my son, is at Facebook now.
Awesome.
Software engineer, which is awesome, right? And what you just said, like it's a different world, right? Like the quality of your code, like you're given, hey, this is what we're working on this week. If you finish that on Monday and you turn in your code and it's peer evaluated and you pass, you kind of have the rest of the week off, right? You've met your goals and you've exceeded, and that's what you're valued on is your code and your participation in the team. And it's very different than, how academia trains us, which is we do homework all week, we study, we prepare. That's just not the real world, right? So I think people come out of academia, no offense to all the teachers and professors listening, you're doing a fantastic job. Focus on inspiring people more than teaching, the stale content. But it just, they're not prepared, right? They're not in a real world situation ready to go contribute to a company. And then you see people with like computer science degrees and they're, doing other things, right? Like, and then they kind of blame it on stuff and they go, well, computer science wasn't for me. And I was like, really? Like, because it's something we really need in the world right now, right? We need great developers doing great things. And it blows me away. And I can only think it's just got to be that traditional academic model, right? Because when computer science emerged in the 80s, they didn't go, oh, we need special schools for computer science because it's different. They said, let's just take this coursework and apply it into the academic model. And, they're just going to do the same thing. Instead of learning psychology, they're going to learn computer science. And it doesn't work. It's really kind of dysfunctional. The only reason we chose Harvey Mudd and paid way too damn much money, sorry, Harvey Mudd, was because it was different. they only had undergraduate students. There were no graduate students. It's a small college, right? There's 200 students per class year. There's only 800 students. It's almost like a community college. They get to do all the internships. They work with Apple and Disney and Microsoft and Google.
Mm-hmm.
Those companies come on
That's
site and
amazing.
do real world things. That was the only reason, right? It was very, very different. I think traditional academia and computer science are just kind of misaligned, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
love, and I want to pivot to kind of what you're doing by taking all this and saying, like, I just want to get great developers out of the world, right? Like
Yes.
without all the pain that comes with 4 years of suffering and some education. I'm not totally discrediting, uh, academia. I think it's great, and I think it works for some folks. And go to college, stay in college. But if you want to make money, if that's your driver, and you want to be building really cool things, there are alternative programs like what you do with the Joy of Coding.
Absolutely.
Cool. So the Joy of Coding, talk to me a little bit about that. It's a master's class. It's for those of you following along at home, if you go to Facebook and you search under groups and you go to Joy of Coding, it will come up. And there's also a website, sixfiguresoftwaredeveloper.com. You can also check it out there if you're following along at home. And you'll see Emily and kind of her programs. And it sounds really cool. So I want you to walk us through this because it's like 6 months of some intensity, right? We're not saying like Emily waves her magic wand and tomorrow you're a six-figure software developer. You still have effort, you still have work, you still have participation, but it's not your traditional, sit in classrooms for hours on end and be totally lost. I've had that feeling. It sounds like you've had that feeling, and it's a horrible feeling. Like this person is speaking and I have no idea what I do with this knowledge, right? Maybe you're understanding it, but you're totally out of context, right? With like,
Mm-hmm.
what do I do with this? How does this apply to anything in the real world?
Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you so much. So I'm super excited to share because I've really been working on this actually for a really long time. So it took me about full disclosure, it took me 6 years to finally learn how to code from start to finish.
Wow.
And that's really just when the light bulb went off and I was like, oh, I can learn anything with coding. The computer is my plaything. I might not know it all, but if you throw a problem at me, I'm going to figure it out. Like that kind of confidence, and having enough foundations in that technical space to be able to do that. Right. And so then I made it my mission to help others learn how to code. And actually, it wasn't a slam dunk figuring out how to do this. It took me 6 more years of really intense focused work and partnering with a retired high school chemistry teacher who taught at one of the most premier private high schools in New York City, sitting in on my classes, helping me see how I could do it better, how I could reach more people. And so, I actually switched universities. I started a big public state school. And I was like, I can't figure this out here. I see them for 1 semester in their 4 years. I can't figure out what changes what impact my changes are having. So I switched to a small school where I was in charge of the whole curriculum and I taught everything, which was a lot. But I learned a lot at the same time.
Yeah.
And what I ended up doing is because I taught them from freshman to senior year throughout the whole software development learning cycle, if they were seniors, I was like, ooh, they don't know that. They don't have to wait to learn that. I can put that in the intro course. Oh, they don't need to wait for that. I put it in the intro course. So basically I ended up just consolidating over and over again, not in a way that like action packed it. So it was like overwhelming, but in a way where like for example, do we learn how to write in all caps? No, right? Like we learn uppercase and lowercase letters. Is that a distraction for us learning to read and write? Not really. It's like a little bit. We learn twice as many letters, but they're not that different, right? We just do it. And that's the same idea here is that you're learning 6-figure developer style along with the fundamentals. So you don't have to relearn it later and unlearn bad habits. You just learn it and start thinking about it right from the beginning. And so what I try to do is distill things into their essential principles. So like I have one basic design principle that I just love and I apply it at every level, whether you're a first time programmer or you're a seasoned veteran, like everything funnels into this one principle and you're just learning how to apply it in many different ways. So it can be simple it doesn't have to be super intense. To be honest, I mapped it out and timed it for the average learner. It's about 2 hours a day, right? Like this is designed to fit into your life. Like it's not, I don't, to me, there's boot camps and there's degrees that expect 40 to 60 hour weeks, which how can anyone learn in that model, right? Like that's just
Right.
overwhelming. Like that's not helping. And unfortunately, I have students that have had this experience where they either went through college and it didn't work for them either, or they went through a boot camp and it was like so much information, they had no idea how to frame it and how to like build this conceptual knowledge. They could actually use it and apply it and build stuff, right? It's all about the problem solving. Like it doesn't matter how much you know if you can't actually do it. So the way we kind of map it out is we start with those, what I call the 7 basics. It's like the alphabet for coding. So, loops, variables, ifs, things like that. So there's 7 of them. And so we go over that. We learn how to use those to solve problems. We learn how to predict code that contains them. That's the test we know to see that, okay, yeah, we've got this, we can move on. Then we're also learning those, best practices of 6-figure developers. We're deepening our problem solving with data structures and algorithms, learning how to pass the tick interview, which unfortunately is here for now until I can't wait to find a better way for that. But for now, it's what we have. We have to work within those constraints. And then we start actually building. So that takes about 2, maybe 3 months typically for a student working part-time, about 2 hours a day. Some students tell me it takes more, some it takes less. It's an average. I've worked with hundreds of students over the years, music majors, history majors, English majors, right? Like this is the average that I find is about 2 hours a day. And then you start going in actually building projects. You could start with your own custom portfolio showpiece where you're like showcasing your work. And then that's usually about a month. And then you're transitioning into an internship role. So one of the things that's a little bit unique about what I do is to learn how to train awesome software developers requires building awesome software. So I have a small software company, so I'm able to actually guaranteed internships with a pathway to paid part-time junior developer roles. So there's actually a pathway to continue getting that experience. So my students don't have to go in cold anymore. Right? They're not fresh. They have that internship experience. They have that experience on their resume that's so valuable. So they've already shown that they can actually deliver on software projects that are paying, right? Like they're actual client professional software projects. So that's the other piece I think that kind of helps us stand out. We always had team projects, team portfolio projects, but having it actually as a separate business really, really helps because now all the incentives are aligned. We're really they're learning best practices that are going to carry them through wherever industry they go into, whatever company they work for. And so that's how it makes that job process a lot easier.
I love it. Do you find, I love what you said about it, everyone's different, right?
Yeah.
You talk a lot about different learning styles and, right. When people talk to me, right, being in the tech industry and they're like, oh, I want to be a developer. I always tell people, it's a different way of thinking, right? I love your focus on problem solvers because I use that as well. I'm like, do you like to figure stuff out? My only interview question, right? I know anyone applying for any of our positions now, I'm giving away my questions so you can prepare for it. Is do you game? And people are always like, what? And I'm like, do you game? Right? Are you a gamer? And if they go, well, yeah, I'm a gamer. I go, well, are you a PC or a console gamer? Oh, I'm a PC gamer. Oh, well, when was the last game that you bought and stayed up for 3 days until you finished it? And they'll be like, oh my God, Red Dead Redemption. When I bought that, I didn't stop, and my mind was on fire. And right, that's a problem solver. That's somebody who's not going to be defeated, who will drive to the very end and figure it out, right? And that's what I'm looking for, right? Is that passion to solve a problem, regardless of what it is. You've never been presented with it before because it's a new game, and you drive to the very end. So I love kind of your focus on, are you a problem solver? This is a cool program because I think that's, if you're lazy, right, you don't want to do the work and you're looking for a silver bullet, probably software development isn't necessarily the course for you. But if you're fascinated by how do I figure this out and how do I make it work and how do I make things tick, software development can be really just a lifetime of doing that, right? Whether it's
Right.
building great apps with great UIs, and I love the focus on like changing the world, right? Like we're past the point where shitty apps are acceptable. Like
Hmm.
I hate crappy websites. I hate crappy software. Like I just don't. There's no reason for it anymore. There's low code, no code tools. Like if you can't build a website that is amazing at this point, just stop. Right? Hire it done. Stop doing it yourself. Because it's highly frustrating for those of us that then use the website. So um,
Exactly.
I I love the focus of this program. How do you kind of filter folks, or does everyone get to try and then maybe they filter themselves up, going, this isn't for me, or hey, I love this and this is totally cool.
Yeah. Oh, such a great question. So, as an academic, my role, I really view my role as reaching everyone who wanted to
Mm-hmm.
learn. So, really the only requirement I look for is you're willing to show up and do the work 2 hours a day. That's it. If you're able to commit to that, we will get there. Basically, that was the promise I made to myself, was that if someone is willing to show up and do the work, I'm going to work with them until we get it done, whatever it takes. Now, the average is 6 months. Sometimes it takes more. Sometimes it takes less. I've had students come in who had experience. They were at other boot camps that didn't work for them, but they had that knowledge in there, and they got job offers in 3 months. So, 6 months again it's an average. Some more,
Right.
some less.
Yeah.
But really, it's if you have that drive, you're like, yes, I want to build better software. And I want to do it. I want to earn my, high quality of life, earn what I'm worth. Then it is totally viable. And so, really, I'm trying to determine if people are ready for the opportunity. Are they ready to come in and take action? Because I'm really looking for action takers, because those are the ones that are going to help continue working on the problems and driving the software forward. But really, at the end of the day, what I'm most passionate about is making it more accessible. Right now, most of software is built by people that intuitively got it. Like it just clicked for them, which is amazing. I knew one in college and I would just watch him in awe of what he could do. And it made me doubt my own abilities as a coder. I was like, how can I exist when he's here? How can I be a coder when he exists? And I'm sure you all know someone that in your life. And I've seen it in classrooms where there's that one superstar. It doesn't happen every semester, but sometimes. And the impact it has on the people around him, they tend to drive away instead of sticking through it and learning. And so really what I'm trying to do is that software is this new digital divide, right? Think of how many times we use software in a day. It's literally designing our lives. And the people who have the power to design the software are actually designing how we live our lives in some sense. And I don't think that should be in the hands of just those who intuitively get it. That's awesome that they exist. I love it. But it also doesn't make them the best educators because they didn't have to struggle. They just got it. I find that when I struggled on things, that's what helps me be a better educator. In fact, there's a couple topics that I didn't struggle on. Those are the ones I struggle to teach because I just got it. But fortunately, I struggled enough that I can connect. I can remember what it was like to kind of be in that space and having to persevere to master it. And I have this story, if we have a moment to share it.
Yeah,
I love
please.
this. I had one of my favorite students. In fact, I'm having lunch with her later today. She is partially sighted. Her name is Ida. So she navigates the world with a seeing eye dog, and she can see the computer screen if she makes it really, really big. Now, most people would think, okay, I'm basically legally blind. I'm not going to learn how to code, right? I'm not going to learn how to do that. But she did, and she persevered, and she rocked it. Got a 6-figure job at Chase, right when she finished. And now she makes software more accessible for everyone, including those that are completely blind. Now, would I have gone into Chase and done that for them? Probably not, because she has this unique talent. So I really believe that people that are attracted to this, no matter how hard it seems, we almost have a moral obligation to pursue it and learn it, because we have a unique gift that we will see to help shepherd the software in a new direction. And the world needs it. So that's why I feel the world needs everybody in this space. So if anybody wants to learn, I'm going to work with them. And that's actually my guarantee, is that I will work with you until you get that 6-figure job or whatever level you want. Not everybody wants 6 figures. Some people are like, okay, 60K. But so whatever that level is, we work together until we get that result.
That's awesome. Does, software developing for somebody who's maybe an English major, right? Or nothing against English majors. Every time I say something like that, I get hate mail. There's nothing wrong with English teachers. English majors are fantastic people. but maybe they didn't take math, they didn't take science. That's not their jam. They're an English major, and they're like, oh, software development sounds like a cool profession. I'm interested in it. Like, is there prereqs and stuff that they need kind of before they come to the class? I mean, one of the things I love about how you're putting this out there, right, is Facebook to me is not an intimidating platform. Everybody's on it. It's accessible. People peruse information on it. Versus you go to a college website and you're like, holy shit, what is this? How do I find anything? Well, what is the coursework? What is, right? You're just lost on any college website. Want to see crappy software or crappy websites? Go to any college's website. 100% garbage. Like, they just haven't figured out the key. They have tons of information. They just can't get it out there in a consumable fashion to people. But you have like your Facebook group, which folks can request, to join and get more information and such. It's just so kind of consumable, right? It's scrollable. And even the six-figure one, it's not intimidating, right? There's not like, here's the 600 hours of coursework and all this stuff, and you're just like, oh, this guy can't do that. Is there folks that are interested that aren't developers, getting back to my question, long preamble to my question, but do they have to have certain skills or aptitudes?
Oh, such a great question. Thank you for that. Because I get this all the time, right? And there's actually two counter examples I can offer. We don't have any prerequisites because really, I mean, it's helpful if you understand algebra, which most people have had algebra at some point. And really, it's about problem solving. If you enjoy puzzles, if you enjoy problem solving, this is just a new tool in your toolbox for problem solving. And that problem solving can come in English, in music, in math, right? It doesn't have to be the traditional. And in fact, I'm sure you're familiar with the technology Ruby on Rails, right? It runs about 4 million websites in the US, internationally right now. It was created by Dave Hubmaier Hansen, who was an English major. He came to coding as an English, like, composition major. I believe it was composition. I know it was an English major. I don't remember what type. But so his emphasis was on language, and he made a great language he helped, take a great language that he liked and make it accessible on the web so that everybody could use it and kind of deliver in that way. And the other thing I like to tell people, because a lot of people come to me, they're like, oh, I'm not smart enough. Right. But really, I know there's so many computer science programs that require calculus, but to be honest, they're just kind of trying to see, can you do math? You don't actually need calculus for any of computer science, except, like, let's say you wanted to create a new animation engine, not work on an animation project, but let's say you wanted to create a brand new piece of software so that Elsa's hair in Frozen waves a certain way. Yes, you need calculus. If you want to do really advanced theory that you will never see until graduate school, yeah, you'll need calculus. Other than that, we don't even use calculus, and it's required by every computer science program in the country because some governing organization said you need it and you can't get around it. All of them have to do it. So anyways, I have a little bit. I don't want to rant too far there.
I share that passion. Yeah.
Sorry. Don't want to rant there. But the thing is you don't have to be a genius, right? For example, you just have to be willing to show up and do the work. Like Mozart, he is a quintessential music genius, right? He composed music at 5 years old. I don't know about you, but I was not composing music at 5 years old. But, he went on and he composed much great music. But didn't other people compose music too? We like to listen to people besides Mozart. Do we care if they wrote it at 5 or 25 or 45? No, we just enjoy the fruits of their labor. So as long as you're willing to learn and you enjoy problem solving, that's really all there needs to be, that you're willing to put in the time that it takes to learn how to problem solve in this new space. That's really what it's about. And the students that I see that are successful, they're showing up every week. They're making they have a steady schedule. They show up, whether it's 2 hours or if you have a little bit of extra time, it does go faster, right? I won't lie about that, but it's not about 60 hours. There's no awards for how many hours it takes. It's really having focused time where you can sit down and prioritize it and being willing to ask questions to get help. Right. So that's how we really fast track the students inside the program, is that dialogue, right? To help them learn. But really, anybody can do this. It's just a matter of learning the skills, learning these new puzzle pieces, these new tools in your toolbox to put together to solve problems.
So, it's interesting because we're recording this podcast May 25th, and tomorrow, literally tomorrow, the podcast won't be out by tomorrow, but tomorrow, you're doing kind of a master's class that looks like it's about 2.5 hours. How often, folks go to the website and they're like, oh, shoot, great, I'm listening to this podcast and it's, June 10th and I missed the master's class, like, wah, wah, wah. How often do you do the master's classes, and
Awesome.
what's the best way for people to get plugged in?
Oh, I love it. Thank you so much. Well, the Facebook group is a great way to connect because then you can just message me and we'll be connected. It's really easy. But if you're interested in what I have to say, I do offer the masterclass regularly. Right now it's about monthly. It might up to twice a month over the summer. We'll see, depends on how popular it is, because I do it live on Zoom. And so that website, that's why I'm directing you to that website. All the listeners that are interested, sixfiguresoftwaredeveloper.com, because there will always be something there leading you to wherever I'm doing next, whether it's a webinar video, like a free webinar, or a live Zoom masterclass, whatever it is, it's going to be there. I'm always going to make that page have some way to connect. So, and in fact, you mentioned June 10th. The next one's actually scheduled for June 11th. That'll go up live after tomorrow. So there's always going to be something happening for sure to connect.
Awesome. I mean, you just have to be busy, right? I mean, if you just look at, all the things you're managing, you mentioned you have 4 kids, 5 on the way. You're teaching master classes, you're developing content, you're involved. It sounds very personally with your students that are involved in this. How do you maintain that sanity around all that stress, right? I mean, that's a lot to juggle personally and professionally.
Oh, thank you for that. Stress is that's a good one for me, because actually when I was in academia, there was a summer where I lost the sight in my left eye due to stress for the entire summer.
Wow.
So I take my stress level very seriously. The silver lining, I always look for the silver lining, right? Mm-hmm. The silver lining was that I had a built-in stress detector where I can now tell you my level of cortisol in my system in real time. Very few people have this, but apparently I needed it so that I could re-engineer my stress levels and figure out how to eliminate them. So I can tell you every trick in the book. Hey, please feel free to reach out to me. I'll just tell you whatever they are. I have all these different ways of reducing stress. So that's a really good one. And actually starting my own business was part of this, because I was actually trying to create this company inside of academia and it didn't work, right? It wasn't, right. But I've been trying to create it for a couple of years. And eventually I just realized that the academic structure didn't allow me to delegate effectively, because it was just students. I couldn't have grad students. I couldn't hire anybody. And even though I could train people to replace me for some of the lesser impact things, I was not able to. And so I just kept getting more and more stressed, because my passion is helping people become amazing software developers. And I'm not willing to compromise on that. But at the end of the day, if my job is not, if that's not what I'm being paid for, I have to cut somewhere. And so it was really dissatisfying, where it's I can get them jobs and I can do more. And I need to hear what industry says about their skills so that I can go back and give more to my program. But the university structure, there's a separate career services department. There was no mechanism for this. So actually starting a business, as challenging as it is to get one off the ground, this is my first one, actually allows me to help balance that a little bit. In the short term, yes, I'm wearing a lot of hats. Fortunately, I like a lot of excitement in my life. I like doing a lot of different things, because I also volunteer. I sing at the church on the weekends. I'm classically trained as a singer, opera singers. I never did it professionally, but I have all these outlets and these avenues and these parts of me that I like to keep going. But yes, having a business where I can start to team and partner with others and hire expertise and delegate some of my tasks is actually really, really helpful, so that I can help focus my time on what I do best. In the short term, yes, I'm doing a lot of different pieces, but in the long term, the payoff is finding that right balance that's going to work for me long term.
I love it. And as an entrepreneur, right, I get a chance to talk to a lot of entrepreneurs, and they all have one thing in common. I summarize it as hustle, right?
Yeah.
There's not an entrepreneur that's like just sitting on their hands, reaping in the benefits of being an entrepreneur, right? They're all out there doing a hustle and whatever it is that they do, and they're passionate about it. So you grew a business successfully. How did that go? Like, what are some tips to some of the folks in the entrepreneurial space that are just maybe starting?
Oh, so good. Such a good question. So for me, I started because I'm on an academic cycle. That was really a gift because I could spend the summer like investing
Right.
in launching my business where I didn't have other responsibilities. So I proved my business last year. And then it was a little bit of a challenge, I will admit, trying to maintain my day job and keep the business going and growing, delivering it and growing it simultaneously. And I do feel like this month, it's my last month as a professor. I've fully walked away and detached. And instantly I had like my best month, my business, because now I can really focus and prioritize my time. Right. And so for me, even though I wasn't yet at the level of replacing my salary when I walked away, I saved up. So I didn't have to be stressed out about it. We saved up to make it happen a little bit. But I found it really like for me, I don't think I could be in a space to really help my business thrive without stepping away from my 9 to 5 because I need to be more focused on taking that action and the steps that will take my business to the next level. But I had proven it, right? I had brought in revenue. I had brought in like half my annual salary, which obviously I don't keep it all because I'm still building the business. But like I'd kind of proven enough of my model that I felt more comfortable walking away. And this was actually my second time trying to walk away because before COVID, I tried to walk away and I had been investigating, starting a business then. And I had like gotten 3K in 1 week. And I was like, oh, okay, I can do this. I don't need to work anymore. Well, I was a little premature. I like literally 3K 1 week, like no consistency. So I realized, oops, okay, no, I need to learn more. And so that was part of this, is that I was building that trust in myself, that faith in myself, that I knew how to do this well enough that we wouldn't have to like sell our house or like make a huge life change. Like I want to be an entrepreneur, but I also wanted to maintain the lifestyle that we currently have. And so that was kind of how, I guess you had asked about like advice. I would say like, you don't wait overly long to walk away from your day job. Like figure out what you need to feel safe and secure where you are so that you can step away and go all in, because it might not happen while you're in it. Like that next step, that blow up of your business may be challenging while you're still distracted with your 9 to 5. Right. And so, but just get it to a place where you could live with it and then see what happens, I guess would be my advice.
Yeah, I love it. So many people, want that, like, well, I'm going to step away. I'm going to step away right now, and I'm like, how are you going to pay rent? Right. Like, don't do, I tell some of my kids, right. Don't do stupid shit, right? Like really pause a moment. It's my only parenting rule, right? I'll share my parenting advice with folks. My only parenting rule that I tell all my kids: don't do stupid shit. If you think like, oh, this might not be, it qualifies, right? Don't do that. So when you think about, starting a business, stay in your 9 to 5, right? And play with the concept until you get some affirmation or some insight like you did, right? And you don't have to be a college professor with 3 months off, right? You can put in a couple hours every night and explore your business and develop it, and then launch once you get that affirmation. So really, really a cool opportunity. Again, folks ask me all the time, how do I hate my job? How do I do something different? How do I make a change? How do I get into tech? How do I become a developer? And I'm always like, ooh, developer, that's hard. And here is a really great option, right, for folks that are maybe mid-career or, not 19 and looking for like the college thing. Maybe they're a little bit older. How are you seeing like the age range, for folks that have an interest in this? Is it folks that are kind of mid-career or a little bit older, or is it our 19-year-olds that don't want to go to college?
Awesome. Great question. I would say, and now I don't, full disclosure, I don't like ask my students' ages. I have a sense
Right.
of them,
Yeah.
right? So I think I have a couple early 20s. I do like a couple have families, right? And they're trying to level up their careers or dissatisfied with their work-life balance with whatever their career currently is. And then it goes up to, I don't think I currently have anyone too far over 40. It's not a barrier. It's just those are not the people that have been coming to see me. Like, it's totally fine. I've talked with people in that space. It's just I don't know if they ultimately decided not to go with any coding at all, or what the reason was. So, but there is no really is no age barrier. Like, this is so in demand, right?
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't really matter. So,
Yeah.
but I do find, like, really the demographics I'm seeing are people who have a career currently where they're dissatisfied and they want something better, with better quality of life, better pay, better balance, like, not having to work shifts or like things like that. And then I also have students who college isn't a good fit. Like, they might have tried college and it didn't work for them because, for example, I'm a really visual learner. College wasn't always set up for me to be successful. There's some people that are really brilliant in certain ways, but college just might not be a good fit for them because, like, it requires like a lot of executive function like things. And so, like, I have a woman who tried college. It wasn't for her. She's loving this. She's thriving the program. She's like showing up because it's short. It's learning smarter, not harder. Like, you don't need 60 hours. If you need 60 hours, we're doing it wrong. Right? Like, this can be simple. Let's let it be simple. Work smarter, not harder. Like, it does take, now it's not like you can just throw 2 hours at anything and get there, right? Like, there is a method to it. Like, there is intentionality for how you get away with just those 2 hours, right? We've mapped it out for 6 months, like, and everything, the internships, everything is designed to be part-time to fit into your life. Like, so you're doing it while you're working your day job, right? And so she's thriving in it. The feedback I'm getting from the students is really, really great. They're enjoying it because it's focused. Like, even if it takes you longer than 2 hours, it's still only a 2-hour chunk. And I've literally gone through, because I've taught this so much in the classroom, I know how long these activities take. And so I'm like, okay, this should take you 20 minutes. And that becomes a way that we have an opportunity for more dialogue and deeper learning. Because it's like, oh, this is taking me longer than 20 minutes. Oh, great. Let's hop on and figure out, like, where the challenge is. Like, let's just fine tune that so you're off and running and you're faster. So it's like, and asking questions and letting someone else answer it and going off and hanging out with your friends or having dinner or sleeping, right? It's all about working smarter, not harder, if that makes sense.
I love it. Yeah, no, it's funny because a lot of people who don't, I think, understand the world of software developers, it's no longer really like, oh, I go to office space, right? I go to a cube farm and I sit there and I just pound away at a keyboard and then I get up after 8 hours. It's really dynamic. Most of especially the large tech firms, whether it be Google or Apple or Facebook or Microsoft, pick almost any of them, their whole tech development teams especially are working remote right now. And have just a crazy quality of life. It's just the space it's in. It's such a cool space to watch folks in. Like I said, I have a son who's a software developer who has a way better quality of life than I do, and damn near makes more than I do, which is also kind of crazy, right? And is just loving it. No Facebook haters, please. Those of you that hate Facebook. He works on Messenger. He's not in control of all the social problems of Facebook. But it's such a cool profession. I love what you're doing to enable folks to be able to do this. Some folks, right, and we don't have to talk about the investment, but there is obviously some sort of a financial investment because you're not a college, right? And some people, I know people that like live on their student loans and they get a student loan and it's amazing. I'm like, isn't that money for college? And they're like, no, I get all this extra money and I don't even begin to understand that. Like the affordability, the accessibility, how does that aspect kind of work? Just as folks, might be like, ooh, but this might be hundreds of thousands of dollars and I can't afford it.
Oh yeah, no, we're definitely priced competitively with boot camps that are out there for sure. Like it's not,
Cool.
I mean, so the students that I taught, because I was teaching a small liberal arts like Harvey Mudd, but smaller, called Drew University. So that my students would pay $200,000 for a 4-year degree. Just for the 5-course sequence where like this that mirrors a similar learning experience to what I'm creating inside Joy of Coding. It's not the same. It's way better inside Joy of Coding Academy because I can actually hire professional developers to like apprentice the students and give feedback on their code in real time, which I could never do in academia. Like there's things that I can do in this play space of entrepreneurship that I could never do in college. But for that 5-course sequence, which was the closest college could come to this experience, it was $50,000. It's not even close to that. And we partnered with a career coach whose program is $10,000 to help people nail the interview, strategize about resume, negotiating, like all that stuff. We're like one-stop shop. We have it all. And it's a fraction of that. It's priced competitively with other boot camps. And if anyone is interested, please let me know. I have a fast acting bonus if you're willing to like take action where I take like a huge chunk of it off if you're ready to like get in right now. So whenever that is, like whenever we connect, right? It's not, there's no time limit on it because I know this will be released and people will listen to it over time. But we have monthly payment plans. We have fast acting bonuses with a huge percentage off.
Awesome.
Like right now it's 50%. I don't know if it'll stay 50%, but it's like really, really good. So again, with guaranteed internships and a pathway to actually earning while you're learning and becoming a paid junior developer, like as part of the software company part-time. Like, yeah, I've tried to put everything into this just to make it as easy as possible to really level up your careers and get that 6-figure job.
I love it. Well, this has been awesome. This is like such a common question that I get asked is like, I hate my job, or do I need to go to college, or how do I get into tech? How do I become a developer? And you've just answered so many of those questions, both for me personally and also I think for the listeners out there. Very, very cool. So again, if you're following along at home, just go to Facebook and search under groups for Joy of Coding. You can reach Emily that way, or sixfiguresoftwaredeveloper.com. You can also get a hold of Emily, and if for some reason you're challenged and can't get those, you can contact me. I'll put you in contact with Emily. Really cool. Thank you for what you do. Thank you for shedding some light, giving folks an alternative path. Nothing wrong with the academia path, but if you're looking to just get out and you're focused more on the career aspect, this is such a great option.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure. And yeah, I love serving and helping people get that next level. So thank you for hosting me and having this podcast.
Absolutely.